Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between the mountains and a river, lived a boy named Arif. He had a dream of flying the biggest, most beautiful kite in the village festival. But every time he tried, his kite would get tangled in the trees or fall flat on the ground. Arif grew frustrated and wanted to give up. One day, an old man saw Arif, sitting by the river, staring at his broken kite. He approached and said, "Why do you look so sad, young one?" Arif said, "I want to fly my kite in the festival, but it never works. No matter how hard I try, it fails." The old man smiled and said, "Let me tell you a secret. When I was young, I also struggled with my kite. But I learned that to make it soar high, you must be patient and understand the wind." Arif listened as the old man explained, "The wind is like life. Sometimes it's strong, sometimes it's gentle. You can't control it, but you can learn to work with it. Don't rush. Wait for the right moment, and your kite will rise." Taking the old man's advice, Arif practiced every day, not just rushing to fly his kite but observing the wind, waiting for the perfect gust. Finally, on the day of the festival, when the wind felt just right, Arif let his kite go. It soared higher than ever, dancing in the sky. The whole village cheered, and Arif learned an important lesson, that patience and understanding are the keys to success. Moral of the story: sometimes, success doesn't come from trying harder but from being patient and learning to work with the circumstances around us. One sunny afternoon, Jack was walking along the beach. He loved exploring new places, always looking for the next adventure. Today, however, something strange caught his eye. Out in the ocean, far beyond the waves, he saw an island that wasn't there before. It seemed to be floating. Curiosity got the better of him, and Jack found an old boat on the shore. He hopped in, paddling toward the mysterious floating island. As he approached, Jack realized this was no ordinary island. The trees were tall and glowing, and the air seemed to shimmer with magic. When he reached the shore, Jack jumped out of the boat and started exploring. Suddenly, a voice spoke from the trees. "Welcome, young traveler. You have found the floating island of knowledge." Jack turned to see a tall, wise-looking bird perched on a branch. The bird had feathers that sparkled like the stars. "I am the guardian of the island," said the bird, "and this is a place where you can learn anything you wish to know." Excited, Jack asked the bird, "Can you teach me how to solve difficult problems? I always get stuck when things get hard." The bird flapped its wings and motioned for Jack to follow. The first lesson is to always remain calm when faced with challenges. Let's start with something fun, solving a puzzle. The bird led Jack to a series of glowing stones arranged in a circle. "This puzzle will teach you patience and focus," said the bird. Jack, eager to try, began moving the stones one by one. It wasn't easy, and at first, he wanted to give up. But remembering the bird's words, Jack stayed calm and eventually solved the puzzle. As soon as the puzzle was complete, the ground beneath Jack glowed, and a hidden staircase appeared, leading deeper into the island. Jack continued his journey, learning new lessons at every step. He learned about teamwork when he had to work with the island's animals to cross a high bridge, and about determination when he climbed a steep hill to reach the island's peak. At the top, Jack found a crystal that shone brightly. The bird appeared again and said, "This crystal is a symbol of all the knowledge you've gained. Take it with you, and it will remind you to always stay calm, be patient, work with others, and never give up." Jack smiled, holding the crystal in his hands. With his green t-shirt fluttering in the wind and his messy hair sticking up, he felt proud of all he had learned. He climbed back into his boat and paddled home, knowing that the lessons from the floating island of knowledge would help him in all his future adventures. Moral of the story: stay calm when faced with challenges, be patient, and always keep learning. One day, Jack and his best friend Jenny were at the train station, excited for a fun trip to visit Jenny's grandma. As they boarded the train, something unusual happened. Instead of stopping at familiar places, the train began to speed through strange landscapes, purple fields, sparkling rivers, and even tunnels filled with glowing lights. Jack and Jenny looked at each other, wide-eyed with excitement. "I think we got on the wrong train," Jack whispered, holding his backpack tightly. Jenny giggled, "I think it's the right train for an adventure." The train suddenly stopped at a mysterious station with a sign that read, "Adventureland." When they stepped off, they found themselves in a magical place where everything seemed possible: talking animals, giant candy trees, and even a roller coaster that went into the clouds. As they explored, they met a wise owl who told them, "This train only comes for those ready to discover something new. But remember, you must find the golden ticket if you want to return home." Determined, Jack and Jenny set off to find the golden ticket. Along the way, they helped a lion find his roar, solved a puzzle to open a treasure chest, and even flew on a giant kite over the land. After many fun challenges, they finally discovered the golden ticket hidden inside a huge candy apple tree. With the golden ticket in hand, they rushed back to the train station just in time. The train whisked them back to the real world, where everything seemed ordinary again. But Jack and Jenny knew they had just experienced something truly magical. As they arrived at Jenny's grandma's house, Jenny grinned and said, "I think that was the best train ride ever." Moral of the story: sometimes, the unexpected can lead to the most magical adventures. Always be open to new discoveries. Jack, a curious boy with a love for plants, lived in a busy city. His small yellow t-shirt often got dirt stains from his daily adventures in the park. One day, while walking home from school, Jack found a small, hidden door in the alleyway behind his house. The door was covered in ivy, almost as if it had been forgotten for years. Unable to resist his curiosity, Jack carefully pushed the door open. To his surprise, behind the door was a beautiful, magical garden. The garden was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It wasn't just filled with ordinary flowers and trees. Each plant seemed to have a special glow, and the fruits hanging from the trees sparkled like gems. As Jack wandered deeper into the garden, he met an elderly gardener who tended to the magical plants. The gardener smiled at Jack and said, "This garden is not just for beauty, young one. Every plant here grows with a purpose. If you listen closely, they can teach you valuable lessons." Intrigued, Jack stayed to help the gardener. He learned that each plant represented something important. One plant taught him patience, another taught him kindness, and a tree with silver leaves taught him the value of hard work. Day by day, Jack worked in the magical garden, learning from the plants and the gardener. He began to realize that the lessons from the garden were not just about plants, they were lessons for life. With every fruit he picked and every flower he nurtured, Jack grew wiser and more thoughtful. After many weeks of learning, the gardener gave Jack a special seed as a parting gift. "Plant this in your own world," the gardener said. "It will remind you of the lessons you've learned here." Jack returned to the busy city, but he was no longer just the boy in the yellow t-shirt with messy hair. He had grown, not just in knowledge but in wisdom. He planted the seed in a small pot in his room. And as it grew, it reminded him of the magical garden and the important lessons he would carry with him forever. Moral of the story: growth isn't just about getting bigger. It's about learning important lessons that help us become better people. Jack and Jenny loved solving puzzles and learning new things. One day, while exploring their grandpa's attic, they discovered an old map tucked inside a book. Jack and Jenny quickly realized this was no ordinary map. It was a treasure map. "Do you think it's real?" Jack asked, his eyes wide with excitement. Jenny grinned. "There's only one way to find out. Let's go." The map led them through a series of clues, hidden around their village. At each stop, they encountered fun challenges that tested their knowledge. First, they had to solve a tricky riddle at the library. Then they decoded secret messages at the school. And finally, they cracked a math puzzle hidden at the town's clock tower. With each clue, they learned something new, whether it was about history, science, or math. The final clue brought them to the park, where an old chest was buried beneath a tree. When they dug it up and opened it, they didn't find gold, but something even better: books, notebooks, and a message that read, "The greatest treasure is knowledge." "Keep learning." Jack and Jenny beamed. They realized that the real treasure wasn't about what they found. It was about everything they learned along the way. Moral of the story: knowledge is the most valuable treasure, and learning is a journey filled with adventure and fun. One sunny afternoon, Jack and his friend Jenny decided to go on a fun adventure. They wanted to explore the big forest near their village. They packed some snacks, water, and their favorite compass, and off they went. At first, everything was exciting. They saw tall trees, colorful birds, and even some playful squirrels. Jack and Jenny were having so much fun that they didn't notice how far they had walked. Soon, they realized they couldn't see the path back home. "Uh-oh," said Jenny, looking around. "I think we're lost." Jack wasn't worried. "Don't worry, Jenny. We have the compass. It will help us find our way back." But when Jack pulled out the compass, something strange happened. The needle started spinning in all directions. Jack and Jenny didn't know which way to go. Suddenly, they heard a rustling noise in the bushes. Out came a friendly-looking deer. The deer seemed to be pointing with its head, as if telling them to follow it. "Maybe the deer knows the way," Jenny said excitedly. They followed the deer deeper into the forest. It led them to a sparkling stream where they filled their water bottles. Along the way, they saw beautiful flowers. And even a rainbow. It felt magical. After a long walk, the deer stopped at a big old tree. Jack and Jenny looked closely and found a hidden path that led them straight back to the village. They were so happy and thankful for their new animal friend. As they reached home, Jack smiled and said, "Even when things get tricky, adventures can always lead to something amazing." Moral of the story: sometimes getting lost can lead to unexpected discoveries and new friends. Always be brave and enjoy the journey. One Saturday, Jack decided to visit the old tower on the edge of town. His friend Max had told him it was haunted by squirrels and that anyone who climbed it would hear strange noises. Jack was ready for a thrill and, hopefully, a good laugh. As soon as he stepped into the tower, he noticed a floorboard squeak and wobble. Curious, Jack pushed down on it, and suddenly, he was catapulted into a little trapdoor that bounced him up like a spring. Laughing, Jack dusted himself off and climbed a spiraling staircase. On each floor, Jack encountered something odd. On the second floor, a little squirrel in a top hat was sipping from a tiny teacup. "Fancy a nut?" it seemed to say as it chattered at him. On the third floor, Jack found an old mirror that made his nose look like a banana and his ears like saucers. Finally, he reached the top and found a funny old chest. Inside was a collection of silly hats. Jack tried them on, each hat funnier than the last: a chicken hat, a wizard hat, even a hat with fake googly eyes that wobbled when he moved. He couldn't stop laughing, and when he finally came out of the tower, the squirrels even seemed to give him an approving cheer. Moral of the story: sometimes the best adventures are the ones that make you laugh, reminding us that a little silliness can brighten anyone's day. It was a bright afternoon, and Jack had just finished making his favorite sandwich: a stack of peanut butter, jelly, pickles, and potato chips all squished between two slices of bread. Proudly, he took it outside to enjoy in the sunshine. But just as he was about to take his first bite, he heard a faint rustle. His sandwich had vanished. Jack looked around, only to spot a cheeky squirrel darting up a tree, his sandwich held high. "Hey, that's my lunch!" Jack shouted, sprinting after the furry thief. The squirrel, quick as lightning, dashed through bushes, up trees, and under benches, with Jack hot on its tail. The chase led Jack through the park, around a playground, and past a picnic where some birds joined in, hoping for a crumb. Jack tried every trick to get his sandwich back, pretending to ignore the squirrel. Didn't work. Sneaking up from behind also didn't work. And even offering the squirrel a trade with an acorn, which only made it chatter at him. Finally, the squirrel dropped the sandwich right on a pile of autumn leaves. Jack jumped up in victory, grabbed his sandwich, and was about to take a bite, only to hear a familiar rustle. The squirrel was back with a friend. Jack burst into laughter, finally giving the squirrel a little piece of his sandwich as a peace offering. After all, he thought, maybe it was just as hungry as he was. Moral of the story: sometimes sharing brings more joy than holding on to what's ours. And it can lead to some pretty funny adventures too.
Ava was a quiet girl who often made gentle, wordless tunes while drawing in her sketchbook. She lived in a small town where every year, the school held a big singing contest. Everyone said it was the most exciting event of the year. Ava loved listening to the performances but had never thought of joining. This year, her music teacher, Mrs. Flores, made a surprise announcement. "Each student in our class must participate in the singing contest," she said with a smile. Ava's heart sank. Me? Sing in front of everyone? No way. Ava tried to convince Mrs. Flores to let her skip the contest. "But I'm not good at singing," Ava said softly. "Nonsense," replied Mrs. Flores. "Every voice is special. You just need a little practice." At home, Ava told her mom about the contest. "I think you'll do great, sweetheart," her mom said, handing her a cup of warm cocoa. "Remember how you used to sing lullabies to your stuffed bear?" Ava blushed. That was different. Singing in front of a crowd felt impossible. Even at school, her classmates were excitedly practicing their songs. Ava felt more nervous each day. Then one afternoon, while she was sitting under the big oak tree in her backyard, her pet bird, Chippy, landed on her shoulder. "Chirp, chirp." Chippy sang happily, as if encouraging her. Ava smiled and whispered, "I wish I could sing as freely as you, Chippy." The next day, Ava decided to give it a try. She started practicing when no one was around, singing quietly in her room. Chippy would join in with cheerful chirps, and soon, Ava began to feel a tiny bit more confident. Mrs. Flores noticed her effort and gave her a simple piece to perform, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." "Start with something you know well," she said. One evening, Ava's older brother, Liam, overheard her singing. "Wow, Ava, that sounded amazing," he said. "You're just saying that," Ava replied, looking down. "No, really. Here, try singing it a little louder." With Liam's encouragement, Ava's voice grew stronger. He even taught her a few tips, like how to take deep breaths and relax her shoulders. The day of the contest arrived. Ava's heart was racing as she stepped onto the stage. The bright lights made it hard to see the audience, but she knew her family and Chippy were there, cheering her on. As the music began, Ava closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She imagined she was back in her room, singing with Chippy. Slowly, her nerves melted away, and her voice rang out, clear and sweet. When she finished, there was a moment of silence, followed by thunderous applause. Ava couldn't believe it. People were clapping for her. After the contest, Mrs. Flores gave Ava a big hug. "I knew you could do it," she said proudly. Ava didn't win first place, but that didn't matter. She had discovered her voice and gained a new confidence she never thought possible. From that day on, Ava loved singing, not just in her room, but with her friends, her family, and even on stage. She realized that sometimes, trying something scary can lead to the most amazing moments. Ava walked home that evening with a big smile. Chippy fluttered around her, chirping happily. "Thank you for being my little coach," she said with a giggle. Jamie bursts through the front door of Grandpa Henry's house, his backpack bouncing as he runs into the kitchen. "Jamie." "Grandpa, Mom said you're making cookies. Can I help?" "Grandpa Henry." "Of course, Jamie. But these aren't just any cookies. They're my special recipe, filled with a bit of magic." "Jamie." "Magic? Like fairy dust?" "Grandpa Henry." "Not quite. The magic comes from the stories each ingredient holds. Let's start, shall we?" Grandpa pulls out an old wooden box filled with small jars and papers. Jamie notices that each jar has a handwritten label. As Grandpa sifts flour into a mixing bowl, Jamie tilts his head. "Jamie, so what's the story about flour, Grandpa?" "Grandpa Henry." "Ah, flour reminds me of the winter when I was about your age. A huge snowstorm hit our town, and we were stuck indoors for days. My siblings and I worked together to bake bread for the whole family. It taught me how important it is to help each other during tough times." "Jamie, wow. So, flour is like teamwork?" "Grandpa Henry." "Exactly. Every ingredient plays its part, just like we did back then." Next, Grandpa measures out sugar. "Grandpa Henry. This sugar reminds me of my first job at Mr. Baker's candy shop. I learned that a little sweetness can brighten anyone's day. One time, I gave a free lollipop to a girl who'd lost her dog, and her smile was worth more than all the candy in the shop." "Jamie, so sugar is about being kind?" "Grandpa Henry." "Exactly. Sweetness isn't just a taste, it's an attitude." As Jamie unwraps a stick of butter, he asks, "Jamie, what's the story for this one?" "Grandpa Henry. Butter reminds me of my mom. She used to churn butter by hand for hours. It wasn't easy, but she always said, 'Anything worth doing is worth doing well.' That's a lesson I carry with me to this day." "Jamie, so butter means working hard?" "Grandpa Henry. That's right, my boy." As they sprinkle chocolate chips into the dough, Grandpa's eyes twinkle. "Grandpa Henry. These chips remind me of the summer I spent at camp. My best friend Tom and I shared a bag of chocolate chips we'd smuggled in. We made secret s'mores late at night and laughed until our stomachs hurt. Sharing those chips made our bond even stronger." "Jamie, so chocolate chips are for friendship?" "Grandpa Henry. And for the joy of sharing, too." Jamie helps roll the dough into small balls while Grandpa preheats the oven. As the cookies bake, the kitchen fills with a warm, comforting aroma. "Jamie, Grandpa, is there a story about baking, too?" "Grandpa Henry. The baking part reminds me that good things take time. You can't rush the process, or you'll burn the cookies. Life's the same way, Jamie, patience makes everything better." Once the cookies are done, Grandpa hands one to Jamie and takes one himself. They sit together at the table, savoring the first bite. "Jamie, these are amazing. So, what's the secret ingredient?" "Grandpa Henry. Love, Jamie. The love you put into what you do is what makes it special." "Jamie, I get it now, Grandpa. The magic isn't in the ingredients, it's in the stories and the love behind them." That night, Jamie writes in his journal about everything he learned from Grandpa. His entries are filled with words like teamwork, kindness, hard work, sharing, and patience. The next weekend, he decides to bake cookies for his parents and siblings, adding his own secret ingredient of love.
In the quiet forest of Elderglow, there lived a little silver fox named Luna. Her fur shimmered faintly under the sunlight, and her eyes sparkled like tiny stars. But despite her beauty, Luna often felt small and unimportant. She dreamed of adventures, but never thought she could have one. Luna was born during the rare moonlit night. The elders whispered that those born under this light carried a touch of the moon's magic. But Luna wasn't sure if she believed it. One evening, darkness fell over Elderglow. A fierce storm brought a terrifying creature, the cloud beast. It swallowed the moonlight, leaving the forest in fear. The elder foxes tried to fight it, but the beast only grew stronger. Luna trembled as the forest grew darker. But then, a beam of moonlight broke through the clouds and surrounded her. A soft voice echoed.
Mysterious voice. You were born for this, little fox. Embrace the light within.
Luna soared into the sky, her light cutting through the darkness. With every move, her moonlit tail sent waves of energy, weakening the cloud beast. With a final, powerful howl, Luna shattered the beast's darkness. The forest was bathed in moonlight once more.
Elder Fox. You have saved us all, Luna. You are the guardian of the moonlit night. From that day on, Luna became a legend. Every moonlit night, she could be seen dancing under the stars, reminding all that even the smallest can shine the brightest. So, the little silver fox became the light of Elderglow, proving that courage and kindness can defeat even the darkest of shadows.
Sarah had always been the kind of person who wanted to impress everyone, her boss, her colleagues, even people she barely worked with. She believed that saying yes to every request would earn her respect and recognition. So, she took on everything. Extra reports, late-night emails, last-minute presentations. No task was too small or too big. At first, it felt rewarding. People praised her dedication, but soon, the pressure started building. Sleep became a luxury, meals were skipped, and the quality of her work began to decline. It didn't take long for her boss to notice. One afternoon, he called her into his office. He didn't sound angry, just concerned. Sarah, I've been noticing a change in your work lately. You seem exhausted. What's going on? For a moment, she hesitated. Then, she admitted it. How she had been pushing herself too hard, trying to prove her worth by saying yes to everything. Her boss listened patiently and then said something that stayed with her. You don't have to do everything to be valuable. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is say no. The words were simple, but they hit deep. She had never thought of it that way. From that day on, Sarah started setting boundaries. She focused on what truly mattered, prioritizing quality over quantity. She learned that saying no didn't mean she was lazy or unhelpful. It meant she understood her limits. And in the end, she became better, not just as an employee, but as a person who valued her own well-being. One night, under the light of the moon, a kind lion walked through a quiet forest. There, he saw a beautiful white cat in a lovely pink flower dress. She looked like magic. The lion felt something special in his heart. He fell in love right away. He picked a red rose and asked her to be with him forever. The cat smiled and said yes. They had a sweet forest wedding with animals all around, lights in the trees, and music in the air. After that, they took a peaceful boat ride on a glowing river. Then they built a small tree house and made it their home. On their first night there, they danced under the stars. Soon, the cat was going to have a baby. One calm night, their little cub was born, a mix of lion and cat, soft and cute. The forest was full of love, and their family was happy together, living a life full of magic, peace, and love. Sarah was always the first to arrive at the office. She loved her morning routine, grabbing a cup of coffee, settling at her desk, and getting a head start before the office buzzed with chatter. One day, she placed her lunchbox in the fridge as usual and got to work. Hours flew by, and when lunchtime arrived, Sarah walked to the office kitchen, only to find her lunchbox missing. She checked every shelf, but it was gone. Confused, she looked around. "Did anyone see my lunchbox?" she asked. Her colleagues shook their heads, some offering to share their food, but Sarah couldn't understand. Who would take someone else's lunch? Determined, she decided to catch the lunch thief. The next day, she placed a small note inside her lunchbox. "I hope you enjoy the meal. Let me know if you need lunch. I'd be happy to share." At noon, she checked the fridge. The lunchbox was gone again. But the next morning, something surprising happened. A handwritten note was left on her desk. "I'm sorry, I was too embarrassed to ask for help. Thank you for your kindness." Sarah smiled. Instead of anger, she felt something else, understanding. She didn't need to catch a thief. She needed to help a colleague. The next day, she packed an extra lunch. In a quiet, sunny valley, a happy little rabbit loved to hop and play in the grassy fields. Near a calm river, a gentle turtle enjoyed peaceful days drawing shapes in the dirt. One day, the rabbit almost ran into the turtle, and instead of being upset, they smiled, and a sweet friendship began. They laughed, shared stories, and planted a small tree together, calling it the Promise Tree. Some animals said they were too different. One was quick, the other slow. But the rabbit and the turtle stayed close and cared for each other. As the tree grew tall and bloomed with pink flowers, the whole valley saw their love. They showed everyone that when two hearts care deeply, they can grow something truly beautiful, no matter how different they are.